Hi, I'm Natasha Wein, and I'm a self-taught abstract painter, writer, and small business owner based in Stockbridge, Massachusetts. I've developed a unique psychoanalytically informed creative process, and I work by series, creating narrative-driven art exhibitions. I was raised in an academic family in Palo Alto, California. In my youth, I was a highly competitive soccer player, and I went through rigorous schooling. My parents, two siblings, and sister-in-law are all mathematicians, and my brother-in-law is an engineer. The rigorous high-level classes and implicit familial pressure, coupled with ongoing complex developmental trauma from my early childhood through my adolescence, resulted in my failure to healthily adapt and mature within this stressful environment. So I swore off formal education and used my college money to support my creative endeavors and the psychological support I needed to heal and grow up. After being raised in a controlling educational model driven by the desires of the teachers instead of the students, my love for learning became tangled with expectations, performance anxiety, and dread. One of the greatest joys in being self-employed and rediscovering my fierce hunger for knowledge is that my life is a vast and constant independent study. I'm always learning and reading, specifically articles relating to psychoanalytic theory, physical therapy, functional medicine, dynamics related to oppression and activism, math, paradoxes, physics, biology, nature, nutrition, philosophy, Zen Buddhism, and Eastern models of medicine. These subjects and related themes inform my work in both direct ways. For example, I sold a painting earlier this year titled Gua Sha, Scraping for Redness, and also more abstract ways, like the concept of different types of infinities. I have always been creatively inclined, but as a child, academics and my commitment to my competitive soccer team took priority. I never took seriously or pursued my creative interests until 2017 when I moved across the country to Western Massachusetts. People often comment on the fact that I am an artist amongst a family of 5 mathematicians, and while growing up I was very much in the role of the black sheep, my work is not as far from STEM fields as people may think. When explaining my creative process to my family members, my father and sister both independently said this process was very similar to their process researching in their respective fields of math. I've developed my own psychoanalytically informed creative process rooted in projection, impulse, free association, and the symbolism embedded in process to create a call and response between abstraction and language in order to understand the origin stories of unknown individual and communal experiences. I slowly chip away at the unknown and use pattern recognition to piece together narratives relating to dynamic internal and social systems. I study themes of liminality and transition, development and interference, connection and isolation, fragmentation and reconstruction, injury and mending, conflicted desires, and resilience. I'm most influenced by creative thinkers whose work centers around studying the human condition and storytelling. And not just other artists, but poets, musicians, chefs, and academics like Mary Oliver, Franz Wright, Jacob Collier, Alan Watts, Joseph Campbell, Nicola Bennett, Adrian Gibson, Alok Vaid-Menon, Sophie Strand, Gerard K. Anderson, Marina Abramovich, and countless psychoanalysts. Right now, I'm working on a few new bodies of work, and I'm seeking gallery representation for a finished body of work consisting of paintings I did with my feet when my spine injury affected my hand function. I have a fairly rare connective tissue disorder called Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, and these larger-scale paintings explore the interface between the external canvas and the internal body and tell stories of injury, mending, disability, joy as an act of reclamation, and what it's like to bear witness to my own deterioration. I also own a small business called Berkshire Resin Art, where I make nature-inspired jewelry, home decor, and tables by preserving locally harvested flowers and mushrooms in resin epoxy. So I stay pretty busy in the studio, selling my work online and at local craft fairs, and making commissions. I also teach resin and process-focused painting workshops at a local art center. Additionally, I'm in the process of writing a book. Being a self-employed artist, there are definitely more than a few challenges. It's difficult to tolerate the states of stagnation, doubt, and rest that are also necessary for production. And when you're an artist and the agent, it's difficult to balance making your most authentic art while also being influenced by external forces. It's also difficult not to have a predictable income because you never know when or what you're going to sell. That being said, navigating these challenges is also what makes the process meaningful. The very act of tending to the creative process and navigating internal and external forces are all projects full of learning and self-discovery. While my income may not be predictable like a job with a salary, I get to live a life dedicated to studying anything and everything my heart desires and not having to work under a boss that has different values than me. And for that, I'm so grateful. The best advice I've ever received was from a former painting mentor who told me to keep getting better at being Natasha. A lot of my skill set and precise intuition relating to creativity, psychology, and group dynamics wasn't valued or understood by my family, so growing up has been about returning to myself and reclaiming my voice and sensitivity in a powerful way. Additionally, advice I would give to my younger self and anyone else would be to play. Every single day, play. Intentionally reconnect with your innate, playful, curious, and humorous self, and view what you create as communication rather than judging it for what you think it should be. If you stay with what it's actively trying to communicate, you can better connect to what you've been through and where you're going. Sometimes I paint with my feet. This started because of a serious spine injury, but it's something I return to when I get too caught up in my head and need to rediscover the power of play and movement. I listen to a lot of different types of music when I work, and I also enjoy listening to lectures by Alan Watts. One of the most meaningful parts of my work is witnessing people find themselves within my visual and written narratives. The reason I'm most drawn to abstraction is it leaves the most room for imagination, which in turn leaves the most room for projection. My art is not just my own. The moment it is made public, it becomes everyone else's, and watching people emotionally react and sometimes cry when viewing my shows is incredibly meaningful. It's always sort of shocking in a positive way to see people cry, especially because there historically were so many tears behind difficult childhood experiences that I work to understand and retell through my art. So there's this sort of beautiful communal composting of tears. I don't exactly have a strict agenda for when people view my art. My goal is to create my own artwork and tell the stories I need to tell, and if that is done in a truly authentic way, then the public finds themselves in my work. I hope people let themselves find their own truths in my artwork and take their emotional experiences seriously. If my work can facilitate a greater capacity to hold complex and nuanced emotion, then my job is done. I also hope people see that creativity is an innate and central part of the human experience that is beaten out of us at an all too young age. My work teaching aims to help people understand what both inhibits and supports their own creativity, so they can learn tools to work with the creative process. Both these states of creativity and production are just as important as the stagnation, frustration, and doubt. I help people work with the whole creative cycle and to understand themselves within it so that they can take up their power and tell their stories. If you want to learn more about my work, go to nweinart.com for my painting and writing and berkshireresinart.com for my resin art. She had to take the longer route. Thankfully, the tennis ball never left a dent. In order to use her feet again, she had to ice her back. She studied from her anatomy book until she could explain her diagnosis to her doctor. Her wrist braces helped when her wrists went limp. It did not matter where the hook was stuck if she could not learn to relax. She still loved, despite it all. It was not her reflection that frightened her, but a lack thereof. "Do not overdo it," she said, as she overdid it. She released her pain with a tennis ball, but injured something else in the process. Every move tugged something else out of place. She asked the doctor to take a closer look. She did not know what was happening to her, and neither did anybody else. She tiptoed on her good leg until it became her last leg. To put on her shoe, she put out a disc. She did not toss or turn or move or relax between her pillow supports at night. Whatever it was, it kept coming back. No, she could not anymore, she could not. Her nerves and blood vessels slowed her down. She had untangled cassette tapes before, but never like this.